Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome everyone to our second lecture of Word Englishes, and our topic of this lecture is British and American English. Before we get into the discussion of differences between these two dialects spoken in two different regions of the world, uh, let's have a quick preview of British and American English and a brief history of it, how it evolved. The English language was first introduced to the Americas by British colonization beginning in the late 16th and early 17th centuries. Apart from America, the language also spread to numerous other parts of the world uh, as a result of British trade and colonization and the spread of former British Empire, which by 1921 included 470 to 570 million people, which is about a quarter of the world's population. So it means about 25% of the people were under British Empire by 1921. So that means that implies that about 25 English had reached by 1920 to about 25% of the population of the world. Written forms of British and American English, as found in newspapers and textbooks, vary little in their essential features. So there is not much difference in the language that is found in newspapers and textbooks. Both the versions of English, British and American. So there is very little difference in their essential features, with only occasional noticeable differences. So only sometimes you feel some difference that this is American English or British English. Otherwise, in the written form, actually there is very little variation in these two dialects of English. Over the past 400 years, the forms of the language used in the Americas, especially in the United States, and that used in the United Kingdom, both of these dialects have diverged in a few minor ways, leading to the versions now often referred to as American English and British English. So this journey of 400 years has generated these two versions, which are now referred to as American English and British English. Differences between the two versions of English include in pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, which is known as lexis, spelling, punctuation, idioms, and formatting of dates and numbers. So these are some of the main areas where you can see difference between British English and American English. However, the differences in written and most spoken grammar structure tend to be much less than in other aspects of the language in terms of mutual intelligibility. So, the difference in written and most spoken grammar structure, there is much less than in other aspects of language. So we can see there is a difference in these aspects: pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, spelling, and others. Okay. But the difference in written and most spoken grammar structure is very little, okay, and it doesn't make the language unintelligible of the speakers of British English and American English. In other words, they can understand each other's language. So it's the language of British speaker is intelligible for American speaker and vice versa. Um, However, a few words have completely different meanings in the two versions, or are even unknown or not used in one of the versions. One particular contribution towards formalizing these differences came from Noah Webster. I hope all of you know the surname Webster, but I don't know. But this was the person uh, who is responsible, or who was the main contributor towards formalizing uh, the differences between British and American English. How? So he wrote the first American dictionary published in 1828 with the intention of showing that people in the United States spoke a different dialect from those spoken in the UK, much like a regional accent. So Noah Webster was the pioneer uh, who highlighted the differences between these two different dialects. So this divergence between American English and British English has provided opportunities for humorous comments. For example, in fiction, George Bernard Shaw, he says that the United States and United Kingdom are two countries divided by a common, not border, but language. So, two countries divided by a common language. So it's very funny comment, and very witty as well. And Oscar Wilde says that we have really everything in common with America nowadays, except, of course, the language. And Henry Sweet, so he predicted in 1877 that within a century, American English, Australian English, and British English would be mutually unintelligible, but it proved incorrectly. Now we can see it's more than 100 years or more than a century, but so all these dialects are still mutually intelligible, not unintelligible. Perhaps increased worldwide communication through different channels of technology like radio, TV, internet has tended to reduce regional variation. Now, I mean, different dialects have been becoming internationally recognized, and this can lead to some variations becoming extinct. For instance, the wireless being progressively superseded by the radio. Now, in radio has almost replaced our wireless, or the acceptance of wide variations as perfectly good English everywhere. So different varieties of English may be considered as perfectly good English everywhere because of the spread of worldwide communication through different channels of technology. Uh, Although spoken American and British English are generally mutually intelligible, there are occasional differences which might cause embarrassment. So these are the main contents of today's lecture, where we will see differences between these two dialects, the dialects of British and American English. So you see word derivation and compounds, vocabulary, style, writing, numerical expressions. Word derivation and compounds. First, let's see the directional suffix word with s or without s. In British English, we see forwards, towards, rightwards, etc. And in American English, the words used are forward, toward, rightward. Here we see in British we are using with the word, we are using s. Okay, with all you see forwards, towards, rightwards, and in America without s. But in both dialects, the distribution varies somewhat. I mean, you cannot distribute that all directional suffixes take s in British English, and all directional suffix go without s in American English. For example, afterwards, here you see in American you say forward, toward, rightward, they are all without s, but here afterwards, towards, and backwards are not unusual in America. So here we have all these directional suffixes with s in America, while in United Kingdom upward and rightward are the more common options, as is forward, which is standard in phrasal verbs such as look forward to. So here you see, so the distribution varies somewhat and the use of directional suffixes in British English and in American English. The forms with s may be used as adverbs or preposition to words, but rarely as adjectives. The forms with s may be used as adverb or preposition to words, but rarely as adjective. In the UK, as in America, one says an upward motion. An upward motion. The Oxford English Dictionary in 1897 suggested a semantic distinction for adverbs with words having a more definite directional sense than word. So, according to OED, which is abbreviation of Oxford English Dictionary, they suggested a semantic distinction for adverbs with words having more definite directional sense than word. So when you use words, so it has more definite directional sense than if you use it without s. American English freely adds the suffix as to day, night, evening, weekend, Monday, etc. to form adverbs to show a repeated or customary action. For example, I used to stay out evenings. The library is closed Saturdays. So, I used to stay out evenings, it shows a repeated or customary action, and same is the case with the library is closed Saturdays. It means that it's closed every Saturday. Such usage has its roots in Old English. So in Old English, so this was there, but many of these constructions are now regarded as American English. For example, the Oxford English Dictionary (OED) labels nights now chiefly North American colloquial in constructions such as to sleep nights. So to sleep nights is considered as a colloquial expression of North America, but to work nights is standard in British English. So this expression to work nights is a standard expression in British English. Although the use of as is normally regarded as American expression, but sometimes or some expressions with s with the add of suffix s is standard in British English as well. In British English, the agentive er suffix is commonly attached to football and also to cricket, like footballer, cricketer, often with netballer, and occasionally with basketball and volleyball. So it's not very common, but occasionally the suffix er is used with basketball, making it basketballer or volleyballer. It's not very often. But American usually use football player. They do not add er. Where the sports name is usable as a verb, but here note it, where the sports name can be used as a verb, the suffixation is standard in both dialects. When if the sports name can be used as a verb, then suffixation is standard in both British English as well as in American English. For example, golfer, bowler. I mean, these golf, it can be used as a verb, or bowl, it can be used as a verb. So here, suffixation is standard, all right, in both the dialects. American English appears sometimes to use the British English form in bowler as slang for a basketball player. So in American English, they say baller to a basketball player as a slang expression, as in the video game NBA ballers. However, this is derived from slang used to ball as a verb, meaning to play basketball. So because the basketball is is called as to ball as a verb also in slang language in America. So that's why their baller is used for a basketball player. Otherwise, you can see up there. So they say basketball player. They don't add agentive er suffix with basketball. But because in slang, in American slang, ball is used for basketball also, and ball can be used as verb as well. So that's why. So baller is used. Er or suffix is used with basketball player as well. Compound words. So English writers everywhere, they occasionally make new compound words from common phrases. For example, health care. So this is a phrase, two words. Two words noun. It's a noun phrase. Is now being replaced by healthcare on both sides of the Atlantic in British and American English. So healthcare. So this is a compound word made out of healthcare phrase. However, American has made certain words in this fashion which are still treated as phrases in British English. So in British English, they are still treated as phrases, but American English has made them compound words in this fashion, in this way. In compound nouns of the form verb noun, sometimes when there is a compound noun in the form of when they are made from verb plus noun, sometimes American English prefers the bare infinitive. Only infinitive bare infinitive form, whereas British English favors the gerund. Uh, for example, you see we had examples of both these English, British English and American English. We have pairs here, but first examples before the slash are American English and the later are British English. Like you see, jump rope is American and skipping rope is British. So British are favoring the gerund, and jump rope is American. You see there is just infinitive without any ing, there is no gerund here. And then race car, racing car, rowboat, rowing boat, sailboat, sailing boat, file cabinet, filing cabinet, and so on. So you can see here in compound nouns which are formed with verb plus noun, Americans prefer infinitives and British English favors the gerund. Yeah, there is another characteristic of American English, that it has a tendency to drop inflectional suffixes and prefer clipped forms. You can see here, you compare here, cookbook versus cookery book. So I hope you understand which one of these is American expression. So where there is no inflectional suffix, cookery. So cookery, this is inflectional suffix. So in American they don't use it here. They say cookbook. They don't say cookery book. Smith age 40. Smith aged 40. So here also this D aged. So this is inflectional, bringing some change to the verb or to the word here. So they are just dropping it in English, American English. Skim milk instead of skimmed milk. They use dollhouse instead of doll's house, and barber shop instead of barber's shop. So there is tendency in American English to drop inflectional suffixes and using clipped forms. One more interesting thing is the singular attributives about both these dialects. Singular attributive in one country may be plural in the other, and vice versa. For example, the UK has drugs problems and the United States has a drug problem. In UK, drugs problem, United States, drug problem. Although the singular use is also commonly heard in the UK. So it's, in the UK, they say drugs problem, and drug problem is also heard there. Americans read the sports section and the British sport section without S. So here it's reverse. In America it's plural, and in British it's singular. And next, maths. British use maths, and Americans say math for mathematics. So here you can see some words are used as plural in British, and some words are used as plurals in America, and vice versa. Some British English words come from French roots, while American English finds its words from other places. So British English come from French, and American from some other places. For example, American eggplant and zucchini are aubergine and courgette in British English. So these are some names of some vegetables. You can put these names on Google and see their pictures. eggplant, I think. Maybe you like it. Uh, and zucchini also. It was very common in Saudi Arabia. But I've never seen this vegetable here in Pakistan so far. Maybe you know this. Check the picture and let me know if you know this. If you have it here in Pakistan. Uh, in the same way, American English has occasionally replaced more traditional English words with their Spanish counterparts. So, American English has replaced more traditional English words with their Spanish counterparts, Spanish, let's say, synonyms. This is especially common in regions historically affected by Spanish settlements. And I mean, uh, the areas which are historically affected by Spanish settlements, they have affected the traditional English vocabulary as well, and they have taken over English vocabulary there. Examples of these include grocery markets, preferences in the US for Spanish names such as cilantro and manzanilla over uh, coriander and chamomile, respectively. So they have, in the US, they use uh, Spanish name for these vegetables. Coriander, this is a vegetable, or spice, let's say. Both, I think, is used as, if it's green, it's let's say vegetable, and seeds are spices, and chamomile is also kind of, I think, kind of vegetable. So, at for these two vegetables, so they are in the US they use Spanish vocabulary. Uh, let's talk about vocabulary now. The familiarity of speakers with words and phrases from different regions varies. I mean, people from different regions, they are familiar with different words and different phrases. People from one region, they understand, they do not, they may not understand words and phrases which are commonly used in other regions of the world. And the difficulty of understanding an unfamiliar definition also depends on the context and the term. So it depends on the context and the term uh, to understand unfamiliar definition. Because expressions spread with the globalization of telecommunication, they are often recognized as foreign to speakers' dialect. Because uh, the expressions in language, they spread through the globalization of telecommunication. So they are often, but not always, but often they are recognized as foreign to the speaker's dialects because the words from other dialects may carry and connotations with regard to register, social status, origin, and intelligence, which may not be communicated through telecommunication and through other channels of communication. Words such as bill and biscuit are used regularly in both American English and British English, but can mean different things in each form. I believe all of you have heard these two words, bill and biscuit, but let's see how different they are for the people in America and in Britain. The word bill has several meanings, most of which are shared between American English and British English. So, most of the meanings are the same for both American Americans and British speakers. However, in American English, bill often refers to a piece of paper money, piece of paper money, as in a dollar bill, uh, which in British English is more commonly referred to as a note. In American English, it can also refer to the visor of a cap. You see, though this is by no means common. So, although it's not common, but it can refer to the visor of a cap, the shade of the cap. You know, the shade of the cap. When you the Western type of cap you wear, there is a shade. So, bill can mean this also. See, this is a new meaning, most probably for you. But in America, it can give this meaning as well. Bell. Biscuit. By the way, this is morning time, and you may need a biscuit as well. Here with me, this is morning time. I don't know when will you hear this, but anyway, biscuit has no time. You can eat it any time if it's not Ramadan. In American English, a biscuit is a soft bready product that is known in British English as a scone, or specifically hard sweet biscuit. And meanwhile, a British English biscuit incorporates both dessert biscuits and American cookies. To table, yeah, this expression is very interesting, very, very interesting. That's why I have put this picture here. I mean, so that it can give you some idea that something funny is coming up. So just relax. As reported by Winston Churchill, the opposite meaning of the verb to table created a misunderstanding during a meeting of the Allied forces. So, to table has a totally opposite meaning in British English and American English. So, there was a meeting of the Allied forces. So, Allied forces, you can understand how important that would be. In that meeting, what happened? Let's see. In British English, to table an item on an agenda means to open it up for discussion. So when you say to table an item, okay, on an agenda, so it means so open it up for discussion. So let's talk on this. Whereas in American English, it means to remove it from discussion. When you say to table it, it means so to remove it from discussion. So this happened there in the meeting of Allied forces. Who said this and what happened? I couldn't find the details. Well, we can imagine somebody said this. So it was really strange or shocking for the other party, or at times to suspend. I mean, if not to remove it from the discussion, to at least it means to suspend or delay discussion. Well, let's table that topic for later. The word football in British English refers to association football, also known as soccer. In American English, football means American football, which is known as rugby, as well as oval shape. It's played with oval shaped ball. It's called American football, and rugby as well. Hockey in British they call it field hockey. In Pakistan's national game also, it means this, but in American it means ice hockey. Words with completely different meanings are relatively few in British and American English. Most of the time they are either two types, let's say. Number one word with one meaning or more than one shared meaning, and one meaning or more meanings unique to one variety. So one meaning or more meaning are intelligible to one variety. For example, bathroom and toilet. Second, words the meaning of which are actually common to both British and American. So there are words, so the meaning of those words are common to both British and American, but there is slight difference in terms of frequency, connotation or denotation. For example, smart, clever, mad. So they have common meaning in both variations, but there may be some differences in terms of frequency, connotation, and denotation. Similarly, in American, you see, English, the word pants is the common word for the British trousers. In American, the word pants is common word for British English trousers, and knickers refers to a variety of half-length trousers, though most American users would use the term shorts rather than knickers. So in British they call it knickers, and in American they call it shorts. While the majority of British speakers would understand pants to mean underpants and knickers to mean female underpants. Sometimes confusion is more subtle. In American English, the word quite used as a qualifier is generally a reinforcement, though it's somewhat uncommon in actual colloquial American use today and carries an air of formality. For example, I'm quite hungry is a very polite way to say I'm very hungry in American English. When an American says I'm quite hungry, it means I'm very hungry. But in British English, quite refers to somewhat. Okay, it means somewhat. So when British says I'm quite hungry, it means I am somewhat hungry. So you see the difference between I'm very hungry and I am somewhat hungry. So this divergence of use can lead to misunderstanding. I mean, if there is American, so when he says I'm quite hungry, so you can say okay, no problem. So let's eat after a couple of hours, and that may put him in problem. And if any British says I'm quite hungry, and you understand American expressions, so then you can just take him to food, to lunch or to dinner immediately, and he is not willing at that time. That can lead to misunderstanding or some kind of embarrassment as well. Most speakers of American English know some uniquely British terms. It's generally very easy, for example, to guess what some words like as British English driving license means, the American equivalent being driver's license. Similarly, speakers of British English are likely to understand most common American terms, for example, sidewalk in American English, is equivalent to pavement or footpath in British English, and gas or gasoline or petrol, counterclockwise or anti-clockwise. Um, Counterclockwise, of course, is American, and anti-clockwise British, or elevator in American, is lift in British, without any problem. I think that most of British English speakers, they understand these American terms, and that is maybe because of the considerable exposure to American popular culture and literature. Certain terms that are not very frequent, they are heard less frequently, especially those likely to be absent or rare in American popular culture. Even in American popular culture, those American terms are not so popular. For example, uh, copacetic, which means very satisfactory, are unlikely to be understood by most British English speakers. Copacetic is an American term, but maybe it's not understood by young Americans as well. Uh, Idiosyncratic differences. So omission of o, and on. Generally, in British English, numbers over 100 have the word and inserted before the last two digits. For example, the number 115 would be written or said 115. This is typical in American English as well, and though a variant without and, for example, written or said 115 is also very common in the US. So 115 in British English can is acceptable or intelligible in US, but without and another variant without and is also uh, very common in the US, and they call it without and as 115. The same way, in the US, the word on can be left out when referring to events occurring on any particular day of the week. The US possibility, example C here, the Cowboys won the game Saturday. And in UK, equivalent for this sentence would be Derby County won the match on Saturday. So here in American English, they are just leaving on before the day, and in British English, on is there before the day. Both British and American English use the expression I couldn't care less to mean the speaker does not care at all. Right? So I couldn't care less means the speaker does not care at all in both American and British English. Some Americans use I could care less to mean the same thing. Some Americans, they use I could care less. So this variant is frequently derided as sloppy. It's not regarded as standard. So as the literal meaning of the words is the speaker does care to some extent. So it doesn't give the meaning that you don't care at all. It gives the meaning that you care. I could care less. It gives you meaning that you care to some extent. So you are not at zero. In both areas, saying I don't mind often means I am not annoyed. For example, by someone's smoking. So you say, if someone's smoking, you say, I don't mind. It means you are not annoyed. While I don't care often means the matter is trivial or boring. So when you say I don't care, it means the matter is boring or trivial. So it's small. but when you say I don't mind, it means I'm not annoyed. However, in answering a question such as tea or coffee, if either alternative is equally acceptable, an American may answer, I don't care. Say tea or coffee, you say I don't care. So, while a British person may answer, I don't mind. So, you say, I don't care, whatever you bring, no problem. So, while British say, uh, I don't mind, I mean, whatever you bring, I don't mind. So, but either sounds odd to the other. I mean, I don't mind is odd for American English speaker, and I don't care is odd for British speaker. Uh, Another example, to be all set. In both British English and American English can mean to be prepared or ready, though it appears to be more common in American English. It can also have an additional meaning in American English of to be finished or done. I'm all set. In American English, it can mean to be finished or done. For example, a customer at a restaurant telling a waiter, I'm all set, I'll take the check. So I mean, I'm done. So you can see it has different meaning in American English. Different or one additional meaning. Equivalent idioms. So a number of English idioms that have essentially the same meaning show lexical differences, so between the British and the American versions. So idioms are there, number of English idioms. Okay, they have essentially the same meaning in both versions, but there is a little bit, I mean, lexical differences, the vocabulary differences are there. You see the chart, the next slide. You can read it by yourself, just go through it. Just a couple of examples. For example, British English on the left column and right American. Not touch something with a barge pole. And the same thing you say in American English, not touch something with a 10-foot pole. Sweep under the carpet, British, and sweep under the rug. Touch wood, knock on wood. And you can go through all these. The meaning are essentially the same but with different vocabulary. Social and cultural differences. Lexical items, number one, that reflect separate social and cultural development. And education and primary and secondary schools. So here we see social and cultural differences in lexical items, in education department, and in primary and secondary schools. Here you can see in British English, okay, there are different stages of schooling, okay, right from preschool to college, and same is with American English. Just go through this and try to understand what different terms are used for different stages at school in British English and American English. The US has a more uniform nationwide system of terms than does the UK. So in the US, so there is a national-wide system of terms, okay, more uniform. It's more uniform than in the UK, but the division by grades varies somewhat among the states and even among local school districts. So, but there is a division by grades. It varies somewhere among the states and even among the local school districts even. But overall, the system of terms is nationwide uh, uniform in the US. For example, elementary school often includes kindergarten and may include 6th grade, with middle school including only 2 grades or extended to 9th grade. In the UK, the US equivalent of a high school is often referred to as a secondary school, regardless of whether it is state funded or private. US secondary education also includes middle school or junior high school, a 2 or 3 year transitional school between elementary school and high school. So, in the handout that I'll give you for this lecture, you have more details on the schooling system of both of these regions, so you can read them. And I think there is no need of explanation. Everything is plainly written and you can understand it easily. But of course, exam will I mean, the handout should be prepared for your exam, not this lecture. This lecture is just the introduction of the topic, and a lot of details cannot be included in this lecture because of the time restrictions. Anyway, there are simple things, so you can read them in the handout. What's the difference in schooling system of both of these regions? University. In the UK, a university student is said to study, to read, or informally simply to do a subject. I study a subject, I read a subject, or informally you can say, I'm doing a subject, I do a subject. Okay, in the recent past, the expression to read a subject was more common at the older universities such as Oxford and Cambridge. So to read a subject was more common in the older institutions. In the US, a student studies or majors. So you see, a student in the in America and in the UK, students study or read or do, and in the US, students studies or majors in a subject. Although students major, concentration or less commonly emphasis is also used in US colleges or universities to refer to the major subject of the study. To major in something refers to the student's principal course of the study. So, what's your major, for example? You can say, my major is linguistics. I'm talking to my MPhil students of linguistics. So, what's your major? So, you will say, my major is linguistics, because this is your main program actually. And principal course, principal program. To study may refer to any class being taken. To study, I'm studying this, so it may refer to any class being taken under this major program. And you see here example of read and whatever we said before. In British English, she read biology at Cambridge. She studied biology at Cambridge. She did biology at Cambridge. So did, do, this is informal as we said before. And American English, she majored in biology at Harvard. She studied biology at Harvard and she concentrated in biology at Harvard. You see how I can't say anything about the last sentence here. She concentrated in biology at Harvard. Does it give this meaning? Very strange for me, myself at least. The word course in American use typically refers to the study of a restricted topic or individual subject. For example, a course in early medieval England, a course in integral calculus uh, over a limited period of time, such as a semester or term. So, this is a course in American use. It refers to a restricted topic or individual subject, okay, and is equivalent to module or sometimes unit as a British. In British English, so you call it module, and in American English you call it a course. But in British you call it module or unit, which spreads to a semester or a term. In the UK, a course of study or simply course is likely to refer to the entire program. You see, in America, the course refers to uh, the topic. Okay, the topic that we use. We use course for this. For example, word English is this is our course. But in the UK, course of study or simply course, it is likely to refer to the program of study. So it may refer to course, may refer to MPhil linguistics, to the program, the whole program, which may extend to over several years and be made up of any number of modules. Hence, it's also practically synonymous to a degree program. So, course can be equivalent to a degree program in the UK, but not in America. America means what we mean here in Pakistan nowadays. A few university specific exceptions exist. For example, at Cambridge, the word paper is used to refer to a module, while the whole course of study is called tripos. So this is one exception. In Cambridge, they call a paper to module or course, and the whole course of study is called tripos. The program is called tripos. A dissertation in American English refers to the final written product of a doctoral student to fulfill the requirement of that program. So, dissertation that you call thesis of a doctoral program, a doctoral student, okay. So, in American English, so dissertation in American English is equivalent to what you call or what we call here thesis. In British, the same word refers to the final written product of a student in an undergraduate or taught master's program. So in American, dissertation is thesis for doctoral student, and British is thesis for undergraduate student or master's student. A dissertation in the American sense would be the thesis in British English, though dissertation is also used. So this is also used in British. Dissertation is also used in thesis in British English. Another source of confusion is the different usage of the word college. So, different usage of the word college. College means different in these two different regions. In the US, it refers to a post-high school institution that grants either associate's or bachelor's degree. So in the US, so any institution, post-high school institution that grants associate's or bachelor's degree, that is college. But in the UK, it refers to any post-secondary. Like here we say inter-college after school, it gives, after secondary, it doesn't give us bachelor's degree, but we still call it college. In the context of higher education, the word school is used slightly differently in British English and American English. In British English, except for the University of London, the word school is used to refer to an academic department in a university. So, except for the University of London in British English, school means uh, an academic department in a university. So any department in a university is called school in British English, except for the University of London. In University of London, something else might be said for this, for academic department. In American English, the word school is used to refer to a collection of related academic departments. So here, school is used to refer to a collection of departments and is headed by a dean. So when it refers to a division of a university, school is practically synonymous to a college. So because there is a collection of related academic departments, so then it is a school in American English. So this is equivalent to a college, because in a college there are many academic departments. So this is equivalent to a college in American English. But in British English, it refers to an academic department. It refers to one academic department. Professor. It has different meanings in British and American English. In British English, it is the highest academic rank, followed by a reader. After professor is reader, then senior lecturer, and then lecturer in British English. In American English, professor refers to academic staff of all ranks. Professor means any academic staff, whatever rank he has, with full professor largely equivalent to the UK meaning. Professor is equivalent to professor in UK, followed by associate professor and assistant professor. Tuition, this also has a different meaning in both of these variations. In British English, it is the educational content transferred from teacher to student at a university. So tuition in British English means the educational content, material, that is transferred from teacher to the student. And in American, it means the money, the fee. What we understand, I think, most of the time, that what do we understand from tuition? Tuition mostly we understand as money, the fee paid to receive the education. In both the US and the UK, a student takes an exam. So we see here some more general terms. Student takes exam in both the US and UK. But in British English, a student can also be said to sit an exam. So not only take, but you can use one more word, sit an exam. I want to sit an exam. I will sit an exam next month. Or I sat an exam last semester but failed or passed, whatever happened. When preparing for an exam, student revise. Okay. When you prepare for exam, so you revise for exam. British English revise is for British English and review for American English. whatever you have studied. So, revise for British English and review for American English to prepare for exam. The British English idiom to revise for has the equivalent to review for in American English. Right, so examinations are supervised by invigilators in the UK. Who supervises exams in the UK? The invigilators. And in America, proctors or exam supervisors in US. A proctor in the US is exam supervisor or invigilator, but proctor in the UK is an official responsible for student discipline at the University of Oxford or Cambridge. So in the UK, a teacher first sets and then administers exam. In the UK, teacher first sets the exam and then he administers the exam. While in the US, the teacher first writes the exam or makes the exam or prepares the exam, etc., and then gives an exam. So this is the difference in these two scenarios. With the same basic meaning of the later idea, but with more formal or official connotation, a teacher in the US may administer or proctor an exam. So these two terms are also used in the US with more formal or official connotation. Examples here of British English. I sat my Spanish exam yesterday. I plan to set a difficult exam for my students, but it isn't ready yet. An American English example, I took my exam at Yale. I spent the entire day yesterday writing the exam. I'm almost ready to give it to my students. Alright, so in British English, students are awarded marks. In British English, students are awarded marks as credit for requirement, for example, test, projects. I mean, they get marks. What we get. Okay, we also get marks out of our exams and projects and assignments. While in American English, students are awarded not marks but points or grades for the same. I mean, they call, in America they call it grades, and in British English they call it marks. Similarly, in British English, a candidate's work is being marked. So I have marked it. Okay, but in American it is graded. Okay, so you say the paper is graded or the exam is graded, and in British English it's called marked. Among high school and college students in the United States, the words freshman or the gender neutral term first year or sometimes freshie, sophomore, junior, and senior refer to the first, second, third, and fourth years respectively. So these are the terms in the United States for college students. So you have here freshman, or instead of freshman, you can say with gender, as a gender neutral, you can say first year or sometimes freshie. So in first year and in freshie, I mean, they are gender neutral. So, but freshman is just for male students. So sophomore is for the second year, and junior for the third year, and senior for the fourth year students. It's more important that the context of either high school or college first be established, or else it must be stated directly. That is, she's a high school freshman. I mean, you should mention school or college. So freshman of where? High school freshman or college freshman. So he's a college junior. So you can say this. Many institutes in both countries also use the term first year as a gender neutral replacement for freshmen, although in the US this is recent usage, formally referring only to those in the first year as graduate students. Uh, One exception is the University of Virginia. Since its founding in 1819, the term first year, second year, third, and fourth year have been used to describe undergraduate university students. So this is this general information about high school and college university students. Student, what does student mean here? Okay, let's see. Uh, let's correct ourselves. What do we understand by student, and what the word mean it? Student itself has a wider meaning in American English, meaning any person of any age studying any subject at any level. There are a lot of any's, so it caused me coughing. So, including those not doing so, okay, so including those not doing so at an educational institution, such as a piano student taking private lessons in the home. So, if anybody who is not studying any subject at any level and he is just doing a tuition or he's just learning something informally, so he's also may be considered as a student, like the example here. Whereas in British English it tends to be used for people studying at the post-secondary educational institution. So it's very limited meaning here, you see. In British English, it tends to be used for the people studying at the post-secondary educational institution. He is students. So what about the students below the secondary educational institution? So they are not students? No, they are not student in British English. What are they? They are pupil. So it's more widely used for a young person at primary or secondary school, though the use of student for secondary school pupils in the UK is increasingly used, particularly for sixth form. Sixth form means year 12 and 13. Okay, so the difference of British English and American English in government and politics. In the UK, political candidates stand for election. So they stand for election, like here. Here also, what we call in Urdu, it also means this. The people stand for election. He's standing for election. While in the US, they run for office. They do not stand because they are fast. So they run for office in the US. So there is virtually no crossover between British English and American English in the use of these terms. Also, the document which contains the party's positions or principles is referred to as party platform in American English, but in British English is commonly known as party's manifesto. So we also call it in Pakistan also, we call it party's manifesto in English and Urdu. I don't know, maybe we call it parties, I don't know really. I'm not interested in politics. We call it something, I don't remember it now, right now, but in party's manifesto in American English is called party platform. Okay, in American English, using the term manifesto may connote that the party is an extremist or radical organization. So it if in America manifesto can put political party in trouble these days, I guess, if they use this term. Okay. The term general election is used slightly differently in British and American English. In British English, it refers exclusively to a nationwide parliamentary election and is differentiated from local elections. Local elections like mayoral and council, European Union parliamentary elections, and by-elections. So these elections are not general elections, are not national-wide parliamentary elections. Whereas in America, it refers to final election for any government position in the US, where the term is differentiated from the term primary, an election that determines party's candidate for the position in question. Okay. So final election is different than primary election in this sense. And additionally, a by-election in British English is called a special election in American English. So this is also different. That in British they call it a by-election, and America they call it a special election. So business and finance, how English is used in this department, how English, British and American English is used in business and finance. In finance statements, what is referred to in American English as revenue or sales is known in British English as turnover. So in American English, you call it revenue or sales, and in British, you call it turnover. In American English, having high turnover in business is surprisingly, in business context, would generally carry negative implication, though the precise meaning would differ by industry. A bankrupt firm, so see these are some very technical terms. If a firm goes bankrupt, so it goes into administration or liquidation in British English. So when any firm is bankrupt, so in British English you say so this firm has gone into administration or liquidation. Okay, in American English, it goes bankrupt. So they say the firm has gone bankrupt, or they say files for Chapter 7 liquidation. So the firm files for Chapter 7, or the firm files for Chapter 11 reorganization. Right, and insolvent individual or partnership goes bankrupt in both British and American English. So an insolvent individual or partnership, when it goes bankrupt, so bankrupt term is used in both British English and American English for what? For an insolvent individual or partnership. But for firms, we see here we have in America, in British we said, so the firm goes into administration, or the firm goes liquidation, or in American the firm goes bankrupt, or the firm files for Chapter 7 liquidation, or firm files for Chapter 11 reorganization. Right. So when some companies go bankrupt, and the finance company, of course, many companies they they take loan from banks and different companies, and when their businesses collapse, so those companies they they, uh, they take over those companies. I mean, they take those companies back to them, and they sell their property and try to cover their money. So if a finance company takes possession of a mortgaged property from a debitor, it is called foreclosure. Foreclosure in American English, and repossession in British English. So the finance company takes possession of the mortgaged property. I mean, of course, they take loan after on mortgaged property, for example, land or any money or anything. Okay, and then they take possession of the mortgaged property to cover their loans. So this is called foreclosure in American English and repossession in British English. In some limited scenarios, repossession may be used in American English. Okay. Repossession, basically we see here up here, is used in British English, but in some cases, some situations, this is used in American English as well. But it's much less commonly compared to foreclosure. It's not compared to foreclosure, but in some scenarios it's used as a repossession. One common exception in American English is for automobiles, which are always said to be repossessed. So for automobiles, the term foreclosure is not used in American, but it's always used repossessed. So repossession is there in this in this certain scenario. Indeed, the agent, the person who collects these cars for the bank, is colloquially known in American English as a repo man. I mean, repossessor man or repo man, colloquially. So in America, this agent is called repo man. Right. The British and American English in employment and recruitment. In British English, the term curriculum vitae, commonly abbreviated as CV, everybody knows it, is used to describe the document prepared by applicants containing their credentials required for job. In American English, the term resume is more commonly used with CV, primarily used in academic or research contexts, and is usually more comprehensive than a resume. So in American, the term resume is more commonly used. Okay, not in British, CV is used for applications containing information for applications for job. In American, the term resume is more commonly used with CV, primarily used in academic or research contexts, and usually more comprehensive than a resume. So CV is used for academic and research context, and it is more detailed than resume in American context. Alright, so now British English and American English in transport. This is also a very detailed topic. I have tried to refine it as much as possible, and the rest I've put into your handout that you will receive and prepare as well. Americans refer to transportation and British people to transport. So they say transportation, Americans, and British transport. Transportation uh, where it is used in America. But what happened to transportation in the UK? So, in transportation in the UK has traditionally meant the punishment of criminals by deporting them to an overseas penal colony. See how different they mean in 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 these two different regions. In American English, on the other hand, transport is usually used only as a verb, seldom as a noun or adjective, except in the reference to certain specialized objects, such as tape transport or military transport, for example, troop transport, a kind of vehicle, not an act of transporting. So you see, transport and transportation, how different they are in uh, both uh, both the variations, American English and British English. Here you can see this chart. I think this is a sort of interesting also after, I mean, because the lecture was very dry. Now we have some colors here. Uh, you see the first picture. This is British fire engine, and America they call it fire truck. Okay, driving license, driver's license. Okay, gear lever, gear shift. Car park, parking lot, American. Okay, and you can read the rest. Road transport. Differences in terminology are especially obvious in the context of roads. So there are different terminologies are used in British and American English relating to road transport. Uh, the British term dual carriageway in American parlance, American term would be divided highway or perhaps simply highway. So in British they call it dual carriageway, and in America they call it divided highway, or they call it just highway, only highway or divided highway. The central reservation on a motorway or dual carriageway in the UK would be the median. I'll say in the UK you call it central reservation on a motorway or dual carriageway in the UK, and in America, in the US, you call it median or center divide on a freeway, expressway, highway, or parkway. So see how, I mean, the terms are different for same thing in British and American English. Okay, slip roads and ramps. I hope you have heard these terms. What are they? Let's see. The one-way lanes that make it possible to enter and leave such roads at an intermediate point without disrupting the flow of traffic are known as slip roads in the UK. I mean, these are like if you have seen motorway or the ring road, you see these single lane roads, entrance and exit lanes. These are, we are talking about these. So in these entrance lanes on the, let's say, motorway or on the ring road, and exit lanes, they are called in the UK slip roads, and in the US they are called ramps. And when you see, when you turn on your navigation on Google Maps, you hear these terms. Especially you hear American terms, ramps, okay, and not slip roads. but slip roads are used in UK. And both further distinguish between on ramps or on slips. On ramps or on slips for what? Say for entering onto the highway or carriageway. So when you enter, you say go on ramps or go on slip. And off ramps or exit slips for leaving a highway or carriageway. And when you are leaving the highway or the carriageway, so you say off ramp or exit slip. Vehicles. Okay, the terms for vehicles in British and American English. In the UK, a saloon is a vehicle that is equivalent to American sedan. Sedan, normal cars which have trunk behind them. Cars. These types of cars are called sedan, and in American and British English, they are called saloon. This is particularly confusing to Americans because in the US, the term saloon is used in only one context. Was that describing an old bar which is called in UK the pub. In UK they call it pub, and saloon in America they call it saloon, which means old bar. Okay. For example, in the an old bar in the American West, a Western saloon. Okay. Coupe or coupe is used by both to refer to a two-door car. Two-door car is called coupe or coupe, but is usually pronounced with two syllables in the UK as coupe and one syllable in the US as coupe. In the UK, van may refer to a lorry. Van in UK refer to lorry. UK of any size. Van of any size in UK is called lorry, whereas in the US, van is only understood to be a very small boxy truck. Okay, van, what we understand van, I think is American meaning of van. Such as moving van or a long passenger automobile with several rows of seats, such as minivan. I think man, what we understand by van is American meaning, but van in UK it refers to lorry of any size, big or small. A large long vehicle used for cargo transport would nearly always be called truck in the US, though alternate terms such as 18-wheeler may be occasionally heard. Whether there are 18 wheels or there are 18 wheels or more or less, it doesn't matter. But long vehicle is known as 18-wheeler in the UK. In the UK, a silencer is the equivalent to the US muffler. In the US, the word silencer has only one meaning: an attachment on the barrel of a gun designed to stop the distinctive crack of gunshot. Specific auto parts and transport terms have different names in the two dialects, for example. So you can see here this chart and see how the different terms are used regarding vehicles. Like you see accelerator, in America you say gas pedal, accelerator also. Bonnet, hood, boot, trunk. Okay, and breakdown van, tow truck, car journey, road trip. So you can go through this. They can be checked because I'm planning to prepare. Prepare is American English or British. I think British is set. Okay, I'm going to set your exam. Planning to set your exam objective type only. So these things can be quite useful. Such things can be quite useful for objective questions. All right. Okay. Rail transport. There are also differences in terminology in the context of rail transport. The best known is railway in the UK and railroad in America, but there are several others. So railway in the UK and railroad in America, and several other terms are also used. A railway station in the UK is railroad station or train station in the US. Trains have drivers, often called engine drivers. Okay, in the UK, in the UK, they are engine drivers or only drivers. Okay, and in America, trains are driven by not drivers but by engineers. Okay, trains have guards in the UK, and in the US they have conductors. A place where two tracks meet is called a set of points in the UK, and a switch in the US. And a place where a road crosses a railway line at ground level is called a level crossing in the UK, and a grade crossing in America. All right, television. In American television, the episodes of a program first broadcast in a particular year constitute a season. So there are some episodes of a program for one season for a particular year in a particular year, so that is a season. Okay, while the entire run of the program, which may span several seasons, is called a season. But if it's more than 1 year or it's spread over several years, so that is called a series. All right. In British television, on the other hand, the word series may apply to the episodes of a program in one particular year. For example, the 1998 series of Grange Hill, as well as to the entire run. So, series may be for one season or for the full program or the entire run. However, the entire run may occasionally be referred to as a show also. The term telecast, meaning television broadcast, and uncommon even in the US, is not used in British English. So the term telecast, meaning television broadcast, and uncommon even in the US, so is telecast is not used in British English. So it's uncommon in the US. A television program would broadcast, air, or shown in both the UK and so instead of telecast, so we have new terms here: broadcast, aired, or shown in both the UK and the US. Right. So the use of that and which in restrictive and non-restrictive relative clauses. Yes, so now we are talking about the style of both of these variations. Let's see first what are non-restrictive relative clause and restrictive relative clause. Generally, a non-restrictive relative clause, also called non-defining or supplementary, is one containing information that is supplementary. So non-restrictive means, so with the clause has a supplementary information that does not change the meaning of the rest of the sentence, whereas restrictive relative clause, which is also called defining or integrated, so it contains information that is essential to the meaning of the sentence. So if the information in the clause is essential for the meaning of the sentence, that is a restrictive relative clause, and if it's not essential, that is non-restrictive relative clause. For example, you see we have here two examples. First one is the dog that bit the man was brown, and second one, the dog which bit the man was brown. We have the same words but just punctuation difference. which change their status, which make them, one of them restrictive and the other one non-restrictive. The first one you see, that bit the man, it identifies which dog the statement is about. The dog, first one, if you see, the dog that bit the man, that bit the man shows which dog the sentence is about. Okay, the statement is about. And in the second one, you see, which bit the man, the same thing, which bit the man in the same in the second sentence. Okay, it provides supplementary information about a known dog. How can you check this? I mean, if you remove this, which bit the man, okay, so if you take this clause, so the dog was brown, so it means the sentence is complete. But here you cannot remove it because this is one full sentence. So here you see, a non-restrictive clause is typically set off by commas. So it's set off by commas. So here you have comma after dog, and I mean this clause is separated by commas, and it has supplementary information. Okay, a non-restrictive clause, relative clause, is typically set up by commas, whereas a restrictive relative clause is not set up by commas. There is no comma, you can see there. But this is not a rule that is universally observed. It's not always there. It's not a universal rule. It can be without commas as well. In speech, there are no commas, of course. What happens then? So this is also reflected in the intonation. So the intonation tells that this is restrictive clause or this is non-restrictive clause, because the intonation, the rise and fall of the sound or voice, okay, determines whether this is restrictive or non-restrictive clause. Writers commonly use which to introduce a non-restrictive clause and that to introduce a restrictive clause. So here we see writers commonly, not always, but commonly use for non-restrictive they use which, for restrictive they use that. So that is rarely used to introduce a non-restrictive clause, because that is used for restrictive clause, to introduce restrictive clause, but that is rarely used to introduce a non-restrictive relative clause in prose. Which and that both commonly used to introduce restrictive clause. So which and that is rarely used for non-restrictive, but which and that both are commonly used to introduce a restrictive clause. A study in 1977 reported that about 75% of occurrences of which were in restrictive clauses. So which was used in restrictive clause. How much? 75%. According to a study in 1977, is about 40 years from now, 40 plus. Okay. H.W. Fowler, in a Dictionary of Modern English Usage, 1926, followed others in suggesting that it would be preferable to use which as the non-restrictive, what he calls non-defining pronoun. So which, he says that it should be preferred as non-restrictive pronoun. And you see, first one also, which was used in restrictive clauses. Okay, and that as the restrictive, what he calls defining pronoun. But he also stated that this rule was observed neither by most writers nor by best writers. So I don't know why he suggested then this. If it was not observed by most writers and not by the best writers. So why are you suggesting? I mean, you have to think, or you have to research and find reason for this, gentlemen, my students, my MPhil scholars. He employed that he suggested usage was more common in American English. Fowler notes that his recommended usage presents problems, in particular that must be the first word of the clause, which means, for instance, that which cannot be replaced by that when it immediately follows a preposition, for example, the basic unit from which matter is constructed. Though this would not prevent us stranded preposition, for example, the basic unit that matter is constructed from. Alright, so the lecture is already very long. So here is some more criticism about the restrictive and non-restrictive relative clauses. So you can read it by yourself. Let's move forward. Before the early 18th century, English spelling was not standardized. Remember, before the early 18th century, I mean 17 something, before 17 something, the English spelling was not standardized. Different standards became noticeable after the publishing of influential dictionaries. For the most part, current British English spellings follow those of Samuel Johnson Dictionary of English Language, while American English spelling follows those of Noah Webster and American Dictionary of English Language, which was published in 1828. In the United Kingdom, the influences of those who preferred the French spellings of certain words proved decisive. In many cases, American English spelling deviated from mainstream British spelling. Okay. On the other hand, it has also often retained older forms. Sometimes it's deviated from mainstream British spelling, and it also retained some older forms as well, the American English. Many of the now characteristic American spellings were popularized, although often not created by Noah Webster. Webster chose already existing alternative spellings on such grounds as simplicity, analogy, or etymology. Okay. Webster did attempt to introduce some reformed spellings, as did the simplified spelling board in early 20th century, but most were not adopted. Later spelling changes in the UK had little effect on present day US spelling and vice versa. So, I mean, the latest changes in the UK spelling had not affected the present US spelling. And same with the changes in the US spelling have affected the UK spellings as well. Okay, full stops and periods and abbreviations. There have been some trends of transatlantic differences in use of periods and some abbreviations. Okay, so there have been big differences in the use of periods and some abbreviations. These are discussed somewhere else. You can see an abbreviation and periods, full stops and spaces, which I did not include unfortunately here. Unit symbols such as kg and hz, hertz, are never punctuated. In British English, so you can see this these symbols. I don't know, they could be shapes or symbols. Okay, shapes, better say. Okay, marks are often referred to as brackets, whereas these are second one, the second line. If you can't see the cursor, are called square brackets, and the third line are called curly brackets. In formal British English and in American English, the same. These brackets marks are parentheses. So in formal British English and in American English, they call it parenthesis, singular parenthesis. There's just a spelling difference in singular and plural. And the brackets are called brackets or square brackets, and curly brackets can be called either curly brackets or curly braces. Despite the different names, these marks are used. The function is the same in both dialects, although they use different names for these marks. Quoting. Okay, British and American English differ in the preferred quotation mark style, including the placement of commas and periods. Commas in headline, for example, I've just taken one example here. American newspapers commonly use a comma as a shorthand for and in headline. For example, you see this example, comma in American English they use as a shorthand for and in headings, in newspaper headings. For example, you see the Washington Post had the headline, a true conservative. For McCain, Bush has both praise advice. Instead of has both praise and advice, they use just comma, praise, advice. Numerical expression. There are many differences in the writing and speaking of English numerals, most of which are matters of style, with the notable exception of different definitions for billions. The two countries have different conventions for floor numbering. The UK uses a mixture of metric system and imperial units, whereas in the US, United States, customary units are dominant in everyday life with a few fields using metric systems. So these are metric system, imperial units, customary units. They are different systems of measurement. So these are used in these places. Okay, monetary amounts. Monetary amounts in the range of 1 to 2 major currency units are often spoken differently. Okay. So in American, one may say $1.50 or £1.80. Whereas in British English, these amounts would be expressed $1.50 and £1.80. For amounts over $1, an American will generally either drop denomination or give both dollar and cents, as in $2.20 or $2.20 for $2.20. An American would not say $2.20, so he will either drop both denominations or take or say both the denominations. Dollars and cents. He will not pick one and drop other, the American. On the other hand, in British English, £2.20 or £2.20 would be most common. But it's different in the UK. Dates are usually written differently in the short numerical form. For example, 2012 00 or 2012 with slashes with dots in the UK, and 12/25/00 in the US. You see here we have day and month and year in the UK, and in the US we have year and day and the year. Sorry, the month, the day and the year in the US. Although the formats 25, 12, 2000, instead of 00, the 2000, instead of two digits, 4 digits for year is also now more common than they were before. Year 2k, I mean Y2k, year 2k, I mean year 2000. So instead of this year 2k, Y2k, so 2000 is more common now. Occasionally other formats are encountered, such as the ISO 8601 2012-25. So here you see this is a new format. First we have year and then month and then date. It's totally opposite. Popular among programmers. So this format is popular among programmers, scientists, and others seeking to avoid ambiguity. So how does it avoid ambiguity? I mean, you will see in your bibliography also, because as a researcher, you need, the most important thing for you is the year of publication. So year should appear first, and they will appear first on your articles and thesis. And then, I mean, we don't need dates. Usually year is enough, so that's why. So this format is popular among programmers, scientists, and others seeking to avoid ambiguity and to make alphanumerical order coincide with chronological order. So this is also helpful in to create a chronological order. Time. Okay, the 24-hour clock, like you have 18 o'clock is considered normal in the UK and Europe in many applications, including air, rail, and bus timetables. It's largely unused in US outside military. So it's very common in the Europe and UK and everywhere. Okay, but in the US it's not in use outside military, police, aviation, and medical applications. As a result, many Americans refer to the 24 clock as military time. So they call, I mean, in America they call it a military time. 24-hour clock is a military time, not for public. Time. British English tends to use the full stop or period when telling time, compared to American English, which uses colons. So British English, they use full stop, and American English, they use colons. Now you can see here, usually in the military and sometimes the police, aviation, and medical applications on both sides of the Atlantic. So this format is used, the following format is used, like 0800 and 1800 are read as 0800 and 1800 hours respectively. Okay, here more detail about time, you can read it. This is the assignment. So you will write a comprehensive comparison between the British and American English in your own words. So you will, first of all, I mean, you will identify what will be the main points you will write about, and try to include more and more technical, I mean, linguistic aspects of differences in the two variations. Thank you very much for this. Is a little bit long lecture, but I think it's not longer than your normal class. Your class is 3 hours, but it's less than 2 hours. It's not even 2 hours. Thank you very much. Have a good day and good time. All the best. So I'll send you the handout where you will find more details, and you will prepare from your handout and other resources you find on the in the library and on the internet. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.